Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Internexus San Diego Podcast on July 9th, 2020. As you know, we're still in this COVID thing, and this is Comic-Con month here in sunny San Diego. I did have tickets to see Comic-Con all 4 days because I'm quite a nerd, and I was so looking forward to seeing Comic-Con, but it looks like it is going to be only a virtual Comic-Con this year. Hopefully we have another one coming up in 2021. So this podcast is going to be about one of the founders of comic books. One of the founders of comic books is Mr. Stan Lee. Stan Lee was a famous writer and editor and publisher at Marvel Comics. He was born in New York City in 1922, and he was the child of a Romanian Jewish immigrants. When he was young, he wanted to become a famous novelist. His original name was Stanley Martin Lubier, which had legally changed to Stanley when he began writing comics, because there was a lot of stigma against comic books at the time. People, including Lee, did not consider comics to be serious literature. He wanted to use his real name when he published his first novel. However, that never happened. When he was young, Stan Lee worked many odd jobs, including writing obituaries and delivering sandwiches. In 1939, he was hired as an assistant at Timely Comics, which later became Marvel Comics. He was able to get a job because he had a connection. His cousin Gene had worked there before. At first, his job consisted of proofreading, erasing pencil marks, and bringing people lunch. But eventually, Lee rose through the ranks and became a writer at Marvel. He created many popular comic book characters, including Spider-Man, Thor, the X-Men, and the Fantastic Four. Before Stan Lee's superheroes were almost too perfect, Lee, on the other hand, wanted his characters to be more relatable. They had extraordinary powers, but also ordinary human problems, like dating issues or moody personalities. In the 1970s, the American organization known as the Comic Code Authority wanted to censor comics because they believed that comics had the power to negatively influence children. Lee, however, disagreed. He continued to insert controversial issues into his work, such as anti-drug messages in The Amazing Spider-Man. Lee's comics were so popular with young people that eventually the CCA relaxed their rules. Marvel Comics has become a huge multimedia corporation that is worth billions of dollars. Even though Lee officially retired in the 1990s, he continues to be a public figurehead at Marvel and often made cameo appearances in movies involving Marvel characters. Lee won many awards for his work throughout his career, including 2 Lifelong Achievement Awards. He died November 2018. Even though many people were saddened by the loss of his creative genius, it is clear that his legacy will live on for long as people are inspired by superheroes. So let me go over some of the vocabulary that you may have heard in this particular podcast. So some of the vocabulary you could have heard is called proofreading. This means when you're reading a document to check for grammar or spelling mistakes. A novelist is someone who is writing a true story. Obituary is a summary of a person's life published when someone has died. Odd jobs means many types of occupations which are usually unrelated. And stigma is a negative ideas about member of a society that think about a specific thing. And an immigrant is someone who moves to a foreign country. So these are some of the words that you may have heard in this podcast. I love Stan Lee. I've always been a very big comic fan. I go to Comic-Con. This would have been the second time that I ever went. And I must say that Stan Lee changed the world with comics, and some of his movies and comic books are still seen today. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I'm very happy to present it, and you'll see another podcast next Thursday. Thank you. My name is Brian Whitman, and I hope that you visit Internexus San Diego and esoboards.com. Thank you.